Okay, let's begin with opening prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this first day of this new week. Thank you for bringing us here to this meeting and help us to be able to understand and remember your message. Thank you for providing for all of our needs and for keeping us all safe and healthy. And please continue to be with us both during this meeting and in this upcoming week. In Christ's name, amen.
Welcome everyone to Youth Prophecy Group meeting 94. Today is December 19th, 2021.
So the title of today's lesson is 2021 Fourth Quarter Summary. In this lesson, we're going to be reviewing lessons 89 through 93, which are all the Youth Prophecy Group lessons done since October to close off the fourth quarter of 2021.
Youth Prophecy Group lesson 89 is titled The Taliban and the Formalization. We first began talking about the Soviet-Afghan War that took place from 1979 to 1989. Which was a 10-year period. After the war with the Soviet Union, Afghanistan was left very weakened, which allowed the rise of a group called the Taliban. The Taliban was formed in September 1994 by men who fought in the war, and it spread like wildfire. 2 years later, the Taliban took control of Afghanistan for the first time. The rule of the Taliban lasted for half a decade, and during that time, they ruled the Afghans with an iron fist, going as far as publicly killing people to set an example. In 2001, Al-Qaeda attacked the United States, which led to the invasion of Afghanistan, where Al-Qaeda was based. During that time that the United States was in Afghanistan, they didn't make a difference between Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. They removed the Taliban from power, although the Taliban continued to hold some power in Afghanistan. In 2011, the leader of Al-Qaeda was killed, ending the need for the United States to be in Afghanistan, but they stayed for a decade longer. The United States was supposed to leave Afghanistan by May 2021, according to an agreement made between the Taliban and Trump. In April 2021, President Biden extended the deadline to September 2021, and then in July, it was moved to August. On August 31st, 2021, the last American troops were removed from Afghanistan. Then we began talking about the significant dates associated with the withdrawal. On May 2nd, 1844, Samuel Snow published a letter saying that the 2300 days would end in the fall of 1844. On July 21st, 1844, he presented the Midnight Cry message for the first time. The Midnight Cry message began to be developed in May 1844 through to July 21st and August 15th and onward. In the first few days of May 2021, the Taliban began its takeover of Afghanistan. It was the same time when the Midnight Cry message began. In the Millerite history, July 21st, 1844 was midway between April 19th, 1844 and October 22nd, 1844. On July 21st, 2021, the Taliban had taken over half of Afghanistan. They were midway through the takeover. On August 15, 2021, the Taliban took control of the capital of Afghanistan, Kabul. In the Millerite history, August 15th was Exeter. We marked Exeter on every reform line as a formalization. Therefore, we know that the formalization externally was on August 15, 2021, when the Taliban took control of Kabul. In the same month, internally, there was a camp meeting where Elder Tess said that the message was formalized. So in August 2021, the formalization between November 9, 2019 and Panium took place. Formalization was in August of this year, and internally it was the camp meeting, and externally it was when the Taliban took control of Afghanistan.
In YPG lesson 90, which was the history of marriage equality, we looked at our reform line from the perspective of same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage was not legal in any country prior to 1989. In many places, it was still a crime to be homosexual, but leading up to 1989, LGBTQ+ people began to fight for their rights. In 1989, things began to change. In October of that year, a law was passed in Denmark. This law allowed homosexual couples to form registered partnerships. While not a marriage, it would still gave them many rights, and it was the first of its kind in the whole world. In East Germany, leading up to 1989, the government has started recognizing LGBTQ plus people and giving them some and tolerating them so that LGBTQ plus people wouldn't organize too much. They decriminalized homosexuality in East Germany even before it was decriminalized in West Germany. Then on November 9th, as the Berlin Wall was falling, the film Coming Out premiered in East Germany. It was about a gay teacher, and it was the first film of its kind in that country. In 1991, the court case Bear versus Mike or Bear versus Lewin began in the state of Hawaii. 3 homosexual couples sued the Department of Health because they were refused marriage licenses just because that they were homosexual. Their case went back and forth for years in the courts of Hawaii, and it was ultimately decided against them. But it still scared other states. Partially in response to that case in Hawaii, in 1996, the Defense of Marriage Act was passed, or DOMA. DOMA was made so that, DOMA prohibited states from recognizing same-sex marriages from other states, which is the second part. And the third part was it prohibited the federal government from recognizing same-sex marriages. They did this because if Hawaii had allowed same-sex marriage, which they did not, but if they did allow it, then other states would have to recognize the same-sex marriages that happen in Hawaii, and they didn't want to do that. So that's why they passed DOMA. In 2001, the Netherlands, which was actually the previous picture, the Netherlands became the first country in the world to legalize homosexual marriage. The law wasn't perfect, but the marriage that they allowed homosexuals was almost identical to heterosexual marriage. The law took effect in April of 2001. Also that same year, homosexuality was decriminalized in Arkansas. Next, in 2004, the first U.S. state, Massachusetts, legalized same-sex marriage. This came after 7 same-sex couples sued in the case called Goodridge versus Department of Public Health, and that case actually started in 2003. But in 2004, it was decided that same-sex marriage would be allowed in that state. In 2009, some people in the U.S. Congress, all Democrats, decided that they wanted to repeal DOMA. They did that, or they wanted to do that by passing the Respect for Marriage Act, which would have destroyed DOMA. The Respect for Marriage Act, though, was never passed. In 2012, the case Windsor versus the USA began. Edith Windsor was suing the U.S. government because they had asked her to pay taxes on an estate she inherited from her wife, the Aspire, who she had married in Canada. Thea had just died, so they wanted her to pay taxes. In 2013, the case was at the Supreme Court and it ruled in Windsor's favor. The court said that the federal government could not discriminate against same-sex couples, and this repealed the 3rd section of DOMA. In 2014, after the Windsor versus USA case was decided, many states in the United States many more states started to legalize same-sex marriage. But homosexual marriage was still illegal in many states in 2014. Then in 2015, another court case began, Burgerfield versus Hodges. This case was a combination of 6 lower court cases, and the Supreme Court decided to rule on it. The Supreme Court ruled that same-sex marriage was legal, and Section 2 of DOMA was overturned, so all states in the United States had to legalize same-sex marriage. This is the line that we did in Lesson 90, as you can see, from 1989 to 2015, and it shows the history of same-sex marriage from then until now, and now it is legal in every state of the United States.
Lesson 91, Two Views of Our Time was presented and published on November 7, 2021. In Two Views of Our Time, we contrasted what this movement believes using correct methodology versus what we once believed when we were using old Adventist methodology. We looked at Daniel 2, which shows us that the stone cut out of the mountain represents the movement, this movement, and the mountain represents the SDA church. And that shows us how we got our methodology from the church because we came from them. So next in lesson 91, we laid out our incorrect view of Adventist or our old Adventist worldview. We used to believe that previous to 1989, everything was okay. Adventist methodology is conservative, and conservatives are anti-LGBTQ+. So that's why we thought that everything was okay before 1989, because LGBTQ people had no rights. Adventist methodology also leads us to incorrect view of the world after 1989. Ellen G. White says that the United States government is going to pass a Sunday law. So we used to believe that the people in the government were evil and that they will be continuously destroying the United States. We thought that when gay marriage was legalized in 2015, which we just talked about, it was the image of the beast. We believed that the movement would be the object of the world's hatred because the world feared us. And most importantly, we believed that the Sunday law would be a surprise. And as you can see, we believe from 1989 to the Sunday law, we used to believe that everything would be bad and we would be persecuted. And at the Sunday law, we used to believe it would be a surprise. And also, we also hated globalism. Yeah. So this was all incorrect methodology. In the next part of lesson 91, we proved this wrong by looking at Millerite history. So the top line on the screen is Millerite history and the bottom line is art history, which we'll get to in a second. Ellen G. White says history repeats. So what we used to believe using Adventist methodology, if it was true, then our view of the end of the world should be a repeat of ancient histories. One of those histories is Millerite history. It's not ancient, but past histories. So Millerite history should be a parallel of our history. And if this methodology of Adventism is true, then the same should happen. In 1798, we know the time of the end was for the Millerites, and therefore it parallels 1989, which was the time of the end for us. So events previous to 1989 should parallel events previous to 1798. And we used to believe everything was okay before 1989, but was everything okay before 1798? No, there was slavery, which you see on the screen, and there was also the 1260 where the papacy was ruling the world. So everything was not good before 1798. What about after 1798? We used to believe that the evil government would be bringing the United States down, but did this happen in Millerite history? There were some victories for the evil side, which were the pro-slavery people, but there were also victories for the good side, which were the abolitionists. So we can't say that the evil side just continuously wins because the abolitionists got some wins too. And this movement also used to believe that the Sunday law was a surprise. But in Millerite history, the Sunday law wasn't a surprise because we could obviously see the South was trying to find a way to get back at the North. So since we proved that this movement's old Adventist understanding of the end of the world is wrong through Millerite history, what is the correct understanding of the end of the world? And this is what we looked at in the next part of lesson 91. We believe that previous to 1989, everything wasn't good. There was racism, sexism, homophobia, and there was church and state. LGBTQ in specific had no rights, and that's the opposite of what we used to believe as LGBTQ having no rights is a good thing. No. We used to believe that them having no rights is a bad thing, but now we,
No.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
bad.
no, yeah. We used to believe that LGBTQ plus people not having rights is a good thing, so we said everything before 1989 is good because they don't have rights. But now we know that them not having rights is a bad thing, so everything before 1989 wasn't good. And then after 1989 was the bad side continuously winning. So we looked at the Millerite history and we saw that was wrong. And our view of the events after 1989 is that the bad side is not continuously winning. So we know the evil side is the Republican Party and The good side is sometimes the Democrat parties, but sometimes the Democrats aren't the good side either. But we can say as a overall statement that the good side is pushing for equality. So when the Democrats push for equality, they can be seen as the good side. So the Republicans don't always win from 1989 onward. We see some victories by the Democrats pushing for equality, such as the legalization of gay marriage in 2015. And we also see another victories such as the impeachment of Trump and other victories like we see the election of Obama on the screen. And of course, Trump was impeached twice. And lastly, we don't believe that the Sunday law will be a surprise. Obviously, in the movement, we know the Sunday law is coming. We already know what it's going to be about, which is gender inequality. So we clearly know that the Sunday law is coming. It won't be a surprise. And on the screen, you also see the New World Order is nationalism. We don't believe the New World Order is globalism. So that's what we covered in lesson 91, what our old Adventist methodology is and what our new correct methodology is for this movement. And what that methodology leads us to believe about our time.
Youth Prophecy Group lesson 92 is titled Feminism, the Three Waves. We started by talking about the first wave of feminism. It began in 1848 when the Seneca Falls Convention took place in New York. It was the first convention of its kind. The main point of the convention was the Declaration of Sentiments. It outlined 19 injustices that women faced at the time and 12 solutions. 11 of the 12 resolutions passed. The one that almost didn't was the right for women to vote. But just over 70 years later, on August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment passed, giving women the right to vote and ending the first wave of feminism. Next, we looked at the second wave of feminism. It began in 1963. The second wave was over women's position in the workplace. During World War II, many women left home and began working, but when the war was over, men wanted them to go back home and start cooking again. Women didn't want that. The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedman was the embodiment of that issue, and its publication was the beginning of the second wave. During the second wave, there were beauty pageant protests in 1968 and 1970. Feminists protested these pageants because they conformed to sexist stereotypes. Also, during the second wave, the term intersectionality was coined. Intersectionality describes the different layers of oppression that people face, which is what this is. The second wave ended with the Supreme Court case Price Waterhouse versus Hopkins. The case was over the issue that a woman was denied a promotion because she wasn't feminine enough. On May 1st, 1989, the Supreme Court ruled in her favor, saying that she was discriminated against based on gender. Lastly, we talked about the third wave of feminism that began only a few short years later in 1991. In 1991, the first African-American Supreme Court justice retired, and to take his place was Clarence Thomas. During the hearings before the Senate voted on him, it was brought to their attention that he sexually harassed a woman named Anita Hill. During her testimony, despite her testimony, Thomas was nominated to the Supreme Court. It just showed how women were treated unfairly and not taken seriously in the Senate. Then we talked about the Me Too movement that began in 2006, but was made mainstream in 2017. The Me Too movement is also a part of feminism because it brings together women and supports women's rights.
YPG lesson 96 was Feminism, the Three Types, and it was the second lesson on feminism, where in this one we looked at the three main types of feminism. The first of those types is cultural feminism. This type of feminism began in the 1970s. Cultural feminists believe that men and women are different, or naturally different, in everything like the way they think and act. They believe that women have ethics of care, so that they are naturally kind, peaceful, and collaborative. They believe that a woman's essence should be valued equally to men, and they believe that that will bring equality. We saw how this type of feminism is, well, most closely describes what Pope Francis believes. He believes that women are valuable because of their essence, and he thinks women need to be kind and peaceful and loving because that's how they naturally are. The second type of feminism that we looked at was liberal or mainstream feminism. This is the oldest and also the biggest branch of feminism. Thank you. They believe that women and men should be equal, and they work to make women equal in society. They work within the structure. They also believe that anything a woman chooses is empowering because she chose it, no matter what it is. To liberal feminists, the personal is not political, and that means personal choices that people make don't affect, personal choices that women make don't affect other people or other women in specific. A subset of liberal feminism is lipstick feminists. These feminists believe, well, these feminists follow beauty standards. They think that women should be free to conform to stereotypes. And to them, following beauty standards will give them equality because they think they will be treated better based on their appearance. The third type of feminism that we looked at was radical feminism. Radical feminists believe that sexism is the main and oldest form of inequality. They believe that the personal is political, and that means that choices women make in their personal lives affect other people and have consequences. They also believe that some parts of society are too entangled in sexism that they need to just be dismantled and rebuilt, so they do not work within the structure. The ideas and many successful things that feminists have done in the past come from radical feminists, like the 1960 and the 1968 and the 1970 pageants protests were both thought of by radical feminists. Radical feminism has two parts: trans exclusionary and trans inclusionary. Trans exclusionary radical feminism, or TERF, don't TERF radical they don't like trans women. They believe that they're just men dressing up and trying to hurt women who already face sexism. On the other hand, radical feminists who do support transgender women believe that they are just women too, and therefore they also need protecting because they also face a lot of sexism and also homophobia. But this is about feminism. On the other hand, I already read that. Then we looked at Ellen G. White. Ellen G. White was radical for her time. We saw how she advocated for women to have more rights, like being paid for their work, and also that women should be encouraged to go, and also that she encouraged women to go against beauty standards, the beauty standards of the day, because they were hurting them. This movement is radical too when it comes to feminism. We saw how we agree with radical feminists in that sexism is the main form of discrimination, because we know that sexism comes from the first curse in Eden, and that it is found in all societies and in everything. We also aren't afraid to dismantle things, and we know that personal choices do matter. We are also trans inclusionary because we support the LGBTQ plus community, and we know that trans women are real women. So all of these characteristics show us the type of feminism that God wants us to most closely align with.
That was quiz time.
First, does anybody have any questions about this lesson or the message in general?
Okay, so it's quiz time now. And each question is a question based on one of the lessons we talked about in order. So, question number 1. What part of the country did the Taliban take over on August 15th? We have a G. So I'll repeat the question. What part of the country did the Taliban take over? And we have an H. So that's correct. They took over Kabul on August 15th to Kabul, August 15th, 2021. The next question. In what court case was same-sex marriage legalized in all of the United States in 2015? So when was same-sex marriage legalized in 2015? What court case was that? Legalized in all the US. We have an I. And the answer is E. Burgerfield versus Hodges was the court case, which was a combination of 6 court cases that legalized same-sex marriage over the whole US. Next question. Will the Sunday law be a surprise? We have an N, but there is no N.
Did you mean A?
So I'll repeat the question. Will the Sunday law be a surprise? And we have A. And that's correct. No, the Sunday law won't be a surprise because we know it's coming. We know what it's going to be about. And eventually we get the date.
That's okay.
Yeah. Next question. When did the third wave of feminism begin? So what year did the third wave begin? We have a D. And that's correct. The third wave began in 1991 and is still currently going on. And final question, what type of radical feminism are we? So what type of radical feminism? We have an I, maybe. And yes, it is I. We are trans inclusionary radical feminists. So congratulations, perfect score on the last quiz of 2021.
Okay. Thank you for coming. And thank you all for coming. And if you can contact us at youthprophecygroup@gmail.com if you want notes or updates or recordings or have questions or lesson suggestions. The next meeting is January 2nd, 2022. So we hope you all can come. And also don't forget, if you want older notes or recordings or slides or anything, you can find that at our website, youthprophecygroup.org.
Now let's close with prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for waking us up this morning and bringing us to this meeting. Please give us a clear understanding of this message and equality. And thank you for calling us to be priests and power of 144,000. Please continue to be with us for the rest of this day and be with us when we begin to take the message to the Levites. We love you. Thank you for first loving us. Amen.
Amen.
Bye.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
coming.
coming.
Bye.